I want to go ahead now, chat, and I want to move on to the main portion of today's stream. And the topic I want to cover is the worst movies, the worst and most disappointing movies of 2022 so far, chat. Now, I just want to go ahead and stay at the very top that I have not seen Morbius, chat, which I know I have not yet morbed. It's not morbid time over here for me. I know a lot of people, a lot of film fans, a lot of critics. They have Morbius at the top as one of the worst movies of the year, and I believe them. Listen, I'm not going to deny it's like, oh, no, Morbius. Of course Morbius is bad. We all predicted that, chat. I've heard from my personal friends. I've heard from my enemies that Morbius is obviously awful. I just haven't seen it yet. I am going to watch Morbius sometime this year. I feel like I owe it to you guys to watch the film, chat, at the very least. So when I eventually do my worst movies, my full and complete worst movies and most disappointing movies of 2022, I'll have it on there, chat. Maybe I'll be the outlier. Maybe I'll like the film. But I just want to let you know before I disappoint anybody, Chad, I'm not morbid tonight. I just haven't seen the film. But I do plan on seeing it sometime in the future. Hopefully when I don't have to pay like $25 for it, because I feel like that's the only way to watch it, Chad, other than, pirating, of course. I don't like to pirate things. So once it's on a streaming service, and I'll give it a look-see, chat, and I'll come in there with my opinions. Probably do a bit of a scene-by-scene breakdown, spoiler review for the movie. However, I have seen a movie recently, a bad movie, one that I know is on a lot of people's lists, one that I missed in the theater that I planned on seeing for you guys, plan on reviewing, but I missed it because I was just so busy at the time. I actually watched this last night, and a matter of fact, a Toasty sent me a digital code, a digital version of the movie. I think they own it. But they sent it to me, and I finally had the opportunity. I forget the Toasty's name. My apologies at the top. Thank you so much. But I finally watched that film, chat, and I did not have I had no expectations for it. Matter of fact, my expectations for this specific film are fucking subterranean, chat. I just figured that this is going to be a bad movie. Because they were struggling to make this movie for over a decade at this point, but it's kind of my white whale, one of my white whales of the year, chat, and I finally conquered it, chat, and that is Uncharted. I can safely say right now that Uncharted is very much one of the worst movies of 2022 so far, and I just kind of want to move the clocks back. I want to turn the clocks back a little bit. I remember when the Uncharted film was announced to be in some form of development, some form of production in 2009, when Uncharted 2 Among Thieves came out on the PS3. That's how long this movie has been in development, chat, right? And you had so many directors and creators involved at certain points. Obviously, Avi Arad, who I detest as a producer, kind of as a person as well, has been attached to this movie since like 2008. But you had so many filmmakers attached to this film over the course of 10 plus years. I mean, David O. Russell, Neil Berger, Seth Gordon, Sean Levy, Dan Trachtenberg. I think the last one before we got Ruben Fleischer was Travis Knight. And they all left it. They smelled something, Chad, and it was stinky. It had a stink to it, and they're like, I don't want to be involved in this film. And they eventually settled on Ruben Fleischer. And you had just these weird rumors. I mean, some of these have been confirmed. Like when David O. Russell was initially attached, he wanted to ignore the basic premise of the game, and he wanted to cast Mark Wahlberg as Nathan Drake, and have it's also co-star Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci as Nathan Drake's uncles. And it's like that's not the game at all, And then it went through various creative differences, and filmmakers left, of course, until we finally arrived at 2022's Uncharted. And yeah, it's just as disappointing as I think a lot of us expected it to be. The thing was, as I was saying, I just thought it didn't make any sense to make an Uncharted movie because those games are inherently so cinematic to begin with. Especially like the latter ones. I mean, Uncharted one, which is dated, by today's standards, of course, but it was very much based on, Indiana Jones. That was inspiration, obviously Tomb Raider, except more cinematic than Tomb Raider. Then once we got to Among Thieves, got to the second one, and it's like, okay, now this is like something incredibly special. And we started to really fall in love with these characters like Nathan Drake and Ellie Fisher and Victor Sullivan and Chloe Frazier, of course, chat, and all these wonderful villains they've had throughout the series. To me, it just felt unnecessary to make a movie. I mean, if you had to, we had some go-to people we picture in the role of Nathan Drake. People throwing out Nathan Fillion. I famously said like, oh, the natural person that would just make sense for Sully is of course Bruce Campbell, chat. And we come to this movie, and it's just Sony being Sony. It's like, let's just go with one of our one of their golden boys. One of the guys that has, listen, at the very least, has made very commercially successful movies for them. And that is Ruben Fleischer, whether it be Zombieland, which I actually like Zombieland quite a bit. I really like that first film. I think it's a great horror comedy. And I think that's probably his best movies. One of his best movies. But he's also the guy that made Venom. And like Gangster Squad and shit. But, Venom, despite what I feel about the movie, which I detest that movie, it was very commercially successful, and they settled on him, and he would get the job done. But there's just certain things about the film that bother me. One, it's the kind of movie where we're just going to cherry pick certain things from the games that are iconic. We're basically going to like take action sequences from certain games and plots from certain games and just mishmash them together and just say go. And we're going to just make horrible miscasting decisions. Listen, I love Tom Holland as an actor. I like Tom Holland. He's my favorite live action Spider-Man. He's been in some other great dramas, over the last few years, Chad. He did that Netflix movie. It takes place like in the 1960s in the South. I forget the name of the top of my head, but he was very good in that. So he's just not Spider-Man. He's done some other works. But I just watching the film, despite him being the devil all the time. Thank you, baby GGG. Devil all the time. Despite him being a very common actor, a very good actor, I just don't buy him as Nathan Drake. He doesn't come across as this character which has been defined by Nolan North for nearly 20 years across all those games and even some of the spin-off stuff. It's hard for me to separate that. And then, if you have an issue with Tom Holland being Nathan Drake, wait until you see Mark Wahlberg as Victor Sullivan, who is at least I will say this about Tom Holland in the movie. He does try his best. He tries his best to capture the attitude and the smarminess and the wholesomeness as Nathan Drake. He does try. It just comes up short each time. But I could tell he's trying, But Mark Wahlberg, who originally, Chad, was attached to the original version of this film 10 plus years ago, and David O. Russell was going to direct it. He was going to be. That's how long the movie's been in production, where you had Mark Wahlberg originally cast as Nathan Drake, and now he's gotten so old that he's playing the father figure to Nathan Drake, Victor Sullivan. This is one of the worst cases of miscasting I think I've ever seen a movie. It's up there. I would say it's in the top 10 right now for me. He is not Victor Sullivan at all. He's not Victor goddamn Sullivan at all. He's Mark Wahlberg. He's Mark Wahlberg. He's just Marky Mark doing his things like, hey, Nate, let's go on an adventure. Let's find some treasure. That's it. That's all he does. And we all knew he would do that. It just feels like executive meddling where we don't want to go with the actor who is basically the character. Which Bruce Campbell, you look at Bruce Campbell, like his attitude, whether it's just in his own life or like even his film persona, how he presents himself in interviews. He comes across like Victor Sullivan. Okay, so even if that's not the real him, that's just like his persona he puts out there. You know what? Obviously in the movies that he's been in, you see that coming across. Like he has those sensibilities and those attributes that just fucking make sense for that character. And you don't cast him because Bruce Campbell's not a big name. As much as we love him, I'm a Bruce Campbell fan. He's the studios think like, well, he's not going to bring in Executives think he's not going to bring in the money, despite obviously being the person that is well suited for the role. They went with Mark Wahlberg because they probably looked at his box office receipts and said, well, all these movies that he's ever made, they all made a profit and they all do well. So boom, he's going to be in it because he's a recognizable face. And it's filmmaking by executive notes, and I fucking hate that. And the plot's generic. It's super generic. It's a mishmash of several of the games. I mean, it's kind of like, it's a lot of the plot of the fourth one, which is weird. Thief's End, the last game in the Nathan Drake arc, in the Nathan Drake story. And I mean, it's also it's part of two, because they have the girl. By the way, the girl, the actress who plays Chloe Frazer, another person just woefully miscast in the movie. Sophia Ali, it doesn't make just any sense at all. I don't know why. You have some other people. You have another guy who plays Sam Drake, and you have Antonio Banderas in the movie as the villain, and he's just a prototypical by the numbers bad guy. It just feels like it's a super generic action adventure movie. That's what it is. It just has the Uncharted name, and I'm sorry, but I just don't feel Uncharted is a generic action adventure. It's definitely borrowing some things like Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider, but to me, it's like it is the spiritual successor to Indiana Jones. Like, we have not gotten a good Indiana Jones movie since 1989. There's been a fucking void for years, for almost 30 years now, right? And Crystal Skull doesn't count. I mean, you had the Young Indiana Jones adventures, and those are fun. I like those. But let's talk about the original trilogy, right? And so, and I felt like it was in another medium, sure, video games, but I really loved the storytelling and the characters and those action sequences. It felt fun, like watching Indiana Jones, like watching Raiders. And this movie just feels so blasé. It feels so generic that I just don't really care. And so, I mean, the most positive thing I could say about it is Tom Holland is obviously trying his best. I do believe that. But everything else about this movie, from the story to the rest of the casting, and just the lack of chemistry. That's the other thing too. The lack of chemistry between Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. I mean, it's like, oh my God, you never buy them. That's one of the biggest flaws of this movie, because they're on screen it's their story. But one of the things that I love about those original games is I love the father-son relationship between Nate and Sully, and that's just not here at all. It's just kind of like this weird, I mean, it's a brother relationship kind of, but it still just doesn't work. It sucks. It's a bad movie, Chad. It's a bad action adventure movie that would have been at home on a streaming service like Netflix. This has more in common with like those generic movies with Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds, like Red State. It's like one of those movies, I would say. So yeah, very disappointing, chat. I don't recommend it. There's better action adventure movies out there for you, in my opinion. But yeah, this is not one of them. I'm glad I watched this because I want to talk about this in more depth. Thank you, Joe, for the 20 bucks. I don't care at all how faithful adaptation is to the source material. So that was bothering me. So that would look bland and forgettable from the trailer. No, it does. It is. I mean, I feel like if you go see, if you have no knowledge of Uncharted and you just go see this, you're right. It's just bland. Nothing about it is really all that funny. There's no sense of a dynamic between Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland. The supporting characters are forgettable. You know, it just exists, and that's what bothers me about it, because Uncharted is special. Uncharted is supposed to be this rip-roaring, fun adventure ride like Indiana Jones, and it captures none of that here, and that's why it's so disappointing. Although it is one of the most successful movies of the year so far. I think it made like $400+ million. Thank you, Glee, for the 100 biddies. Hope you're doing well. Pleasure to have you here. Yeah, so I made so much money. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just what I was saying. And Sony Pictures, I should say. Because that's the other thing I want to preface this. Sony game division and Sony Pictures, they're all under the Sony umbrella, but they're not, it's not the same people involved. So let me just go ahead and say that. But yeah, no, they're going to turn this into a franchise. They've already said that. And you got Tom Rothman, who is one of the most incompetent people working in film, right next to Avi Arad, who's saying like, oh yeah, we're turning this into a franchise right now. So I am not looking forward to that. I doubt they will take any criticism to heart. We'll see. We'll see. Franchise going to see. I watch it, and I said, okay. Then I said, now where's my trim? I know, 100%, right there with you. Oh, and they have the fuck. I'll spoil this for you right now, chat. Because as you can see, in the image I have and all the marketing, Mark Wahlberg does not have the iconic Victor Sullivan mustache. It's part of Sully's aesthetic. It's part of his character, his physical, his physicality. And I called this. I was 110% right. Where I said they'll have it at the end of the movie. It'll be the end credit stinger. It'll come at the very end of the film, and lo and fucking behold, that's what happened. He's like, hey, Nate, you like the mustache? You like the mustache? And Nate's like, what's that thing on your face? And it's like, fuck. It's like, of course. It makes every mistake you think it can make. And then some, chat. But at the end of the day, it's just bland. It's just boring. Anyway, hey, moving on to, a franchise. This is a franchise that's starting, chat, despite it being, very boring and bland generic. We're talking about a franchise that I feel like is dead in the water, and I have no idea what they're going to do with it now. But that is Fantastic Beasts and the Secrets of Dumbledore. Listen, I didn't hate this movie. I think it's better than The Crimes of Grindelwald, And I think the second half is better than the first half. But the thing that's so frustrating is that you look at the Harry Potter films and how that's one of the best, modern day franchises that we've gotten. I mean, now they consider some of it retro because it came out 20 years ago. It's funny that the Sorcerer's Stone is now a retro movie because it's over 20 years old. It's very funny. But when you think of Harry Potter, those 8 movies, based on those books, of course, that is one of the most, successful critically and commercially franchises of all time. A modern franchise I think has worked well. That I feel like, especially by the third one and onward, it really found itself. And I either thought all those movies were either very good or excellent, And, but at the same time, it's like, okay, you're done. And what are you going to do next? And they did the Fantastic Beasts film. That first one, I liked it. I was like, this is fine, okay. And then, I don't know, that second one, there's something about that second one that I'm like, all right, I'm kind of done with this. It's just, you did not think any of this through. Even though I like the aesthetics that it's a period piece and it takes place in the 19-teens and 1920s and all that. By that second one, I was done. And this one, it just feels like they were shooting from the hip. And it just didn't help that you had all the recasting with Grindelwald. Like, you don't really get a sense of any of who these characters are. Like, the Newt Scamander character, you're like, okay, he's charming in the first one. But it's like, you realize, like, oh, he should not be the lead in any of these movies. Matter of fact, it probably should be Dumbledore, like, Jude Law, who's actually, I think, good in the movie. He's not used very much in the second one, but here he's used, I think, quite well. It's like, oh, you realize, like, this movie makes you realize in hindsight what they should have done, especially in that second half, but they just make so many of the same mistakes. It's like they're playing catch up with themselves. It's like, oh yeah, we don't really know who Grindelwald is, the character. By this time, we're on the third fucking actor who's played him. We had Colin Farrell in the first one, who I think they should have stuck with. I think he did a really good job, but whatever. Johnny Depp, and now, based on the circumstances, he wasn't brought back. And now you have Mads Mikkelsen, who's actually good, but we just don't know who he is. He gives a good performance, but I'm like, I don't know who the fuck this guy is. I don't know how to feel about him. And I think even they knew what the trouble that they were in with this movie. And they were sure. They were very goddamn sure. And I, like, in hindsight, I was like, oh yeah, you could tell the writing was on the wall, where they wrapped up everything. There is one thing they didn't wrap up, but it can easily be explained in a line of dialogue why it, it's like, oh yeah, Grindelwald. You know what they didn't wrap up? Grindelwald escaped. He got away. But every other storyline in this franchise, what they say is supposed to be 5 movies, is wrapped up and done. They never have to go back to it if they want to. And to me, it's just, this is more of a, it's not like this is the worst of the worst. It's just, this is such a disappointment because it's based on such good material. Listen, J.K. Rowling, we could say a lot about her, but the books of Harry Potter are very good, right? And to me, it's just like, wow, that this is the best that you can come up with based on that original property is kind of sad. It's just a mess. Even though I feel like the second half is actually, it's good, solid, but that first half is goddamn boring. It's boring and it spins its wheels and it takes a long time to actually get going to something that is interesting, in my opinion. And it's like, this is already this movie's like, 2.5 hours long? It's a long fucking film. It's a 142-minute movie. You cannot be spinning your goddamn wheels for an hour plus, all right, until you get to something interesting. And that's a problem with me. And, you know, I mean, you just look at the box office receipts. This is they call it, I guess it's called the Wizarding World franchise, as far as I know. They don't call it the Harry Potter franchise. They don't want to touch that name anymore. They don't want to do all these spinoffs. But this is the lowest grossing Wizarding World movie in the franchise so far. It's because I feel like there's just a lack of interest, and they didn't have a plan. And that's obvious. And we got to where we are now. And it's a shame because I thought they started like, oh, it's going to be interesting. And that second movie really fucked them over. But this one, you know, didn't help. Where the first half of this, it failed to, I think, really get people back to the theater, you know, and watch this film. But the marketing wasn't all that great either. Yeah, it was, this was a major, not so much like this is the worst of the worst movie. You know, if I were to make like a worst movies of the year, this would be like the bottom 5, but not, you know, because there is some good stuff in it. Like, I think, you know, funny enough, the heart of the movie, who I think does a great job, is Dan Fogler. Plays the character, I think, Joseph Kowalski. He's actually really funny in the movie. He's really good. Jude Law is really good in the movie. Mads Mikkelsen is really good in the movie. It's just, this movie is paying for the sins and mistakes of the other films. And that's what's happened. That's what's happened. And plus, you have all the controversies, obviously, now at this point with J.K. Rowling, of course, you know, in the comments that she's made about the trans community. I mean, it's a mess. Warner Brothers, I don't know what they're going to do now. You know, they obviously have them just, you know, kind of, you know, little aside. They have that they have the Hogwarts Legacy game maybe coming out this year. I don't know, which I'm looking forward to playing, of course. But, like, what are you going to do with the films? I have no idea. I don't know. Do you move on? Do you go to the future now? Oh, and Ezra Miller, of course. It didn't help things. They wrap his story up. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, all right. Movie came out a while ago, Chad. If you haven't seen this movie by now, you ain't going to see it now. They kill him. Or that, you know, basically what they do is they have it where, oh, he's going to die eventually. He gets hit by like a curse or something. I don't know. And it's like he doesn't have a lot of time left, but it's like, his uncle is not, because at the end of the sequel, they say, oh, your father's Albus Dumbledore, but he's actually not. He's the nephew of Albus Dumbledore. He's the son of Aberforth Dumbledore, whatever. And anyway, he gets hit by Mads Mikkelsen, Grindelwald, by a spell, and he's dying, but he's not dead yet, in case like we want to bring him back. They ain't bringing him back. So, you know, that happened. But they wrap everything else up. You know. It was a waste. It was a waste of really cool material. But yeah, it was just, it's a shame because I just don't know what the hell they're going to do with this property afterwards, chat. No idea. I think the only thing you should do is go to the future now and like, all right, let's go past Harry Potter. It's after the events. And, you know, I mean, Daniel Radcliffe, I mean, you've always heard those rumors about, or, you know, people are saying like, oh, adapt the, what was that? The Cursed Child thing, which I hear is not that good to begin with. Bring them back for that. But, you know, Daniel Radcliffe says, like, I don't want to do that. Daniel Radcliffe, I don't think ever wants to be Harry Potter again. He's always going to appreciate it. He'll always love it. But he's like, I don't want to be fucking Harry Potter again. I want to do my weird movies, which he's been doing a lot of weird stuff. I really admire, I respect Daniel Radcliffe a lot as an actor, because maybe not every movie he does is great, but he is putting his ass out there and trying different things, you know? So I kind of appreciate him. Is like, I don't need this anymore. And nor does he. He's going to make money for the, my nose itchy. I get so mad my nose is itchy. That's how mad I am. You know, he doesn't need to do this anymore. And honestly, I don't know if, I think what needs to happen with Harry Potter for right now, or the Wizarding World, whatever you want to call it, they need to rethink all these movies at the moment. They need to take a break from this franchise and come back like in 5 or so years. So they have a fucking plan. Because these movies didn't have plan, and it shows. Even though I liked the second half. I actually liked it quite a bit. But yeah, still disappointing movie in my opinion. Moving on from Fantastic Beasts chat, we get to what is probably the biggest disappointment of the year for me. And you guys knew I was really looking forward to this movie. And that's Lightyear. I love the marketing for this film. I like the idea of Lightyear being the movie that Andy from the original Toy Story film saw as a kid that made him want to get a Buzz Lightyear action figure. I was like, that's cool. I understood the idea. And I like, you know what? I really like the first third. It's like, oh, okay, it's the Space Rangers and they're stuck on this planet. And it's very inspired by like Starship Troopers, like aesthetically by Starship Troopers and Aliens. You know, and kind of these more space exploration movies. I was like, oh, this is a forbidden planet. I think it's cool. And they pick him like a time travel story. But I have to tell you, Chad, once we got to that second third, where they introduced those supporting characters, like voiced by, Keke Palmer and Taika Waititi and the other one, I thought the movie just really dipped in quality, where I just found them all so annoying, and where it was just like, let's take a moment just for a comedic bit. It's funny. I talk about Thor: Love and Thunder, where the humor really worked for me. This is the movie where the humor just did not work for me. I just didn't find it all that funny. And I don't know. I just thought it had a lot of pacing issues too, despite it being like, it's a long film. It's 142 minutes. I mean, not 142 minutes. That's another film I was looking at. But anyway, it feels like 142 minutes, right? I mean, being close to like 2 hours, chat. It's like, yeah, I don't think it needed to be this long. And even though I like Chris Evans as the role of Lightyear, I think he does a good job, and I like the actor who voices the character Socks, who's definitely the standout of the film. It just, it was that supporting cast, and you're putting together this, these kind of Dirty Dozen-esque team of these incompetents. And so much of the movie was about that, not about this kind of spacefaring adventure, where they're actually space rangers. It just left me wanting, feel disappointed. And I feel like how they handled the Zurg thing this is interesting. Because, famously, Zurg is he's a nothing character. Like, really, when you think about, like, he's a Darth Vader parody. That's what he was. That's what he was in the original Toy Story franchise and, like, Toy Story 2. And that's what he was. And he was, like, a Darth Vader / Emperor parody in Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. Like, the 2D Disney animated series. Right? That's what he was. And they did something different with him in the movie. But I don't know. It didn't hit me. It didn't. I was like, all right, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't. It was supposed to be like, whoa, this is a huge thing. But yeah, it just left me wanting constantly. Even though it had all the things I typically like. You guys know I love, like, sci-fi action, sci-fi horror. But yeah, it was those supporting characters, especially with Keke Palmer, especially with Taika Waititi. Which I don't mean to hate on Taika. I know everyone's hating on Taika Waititi now. They say he's the worst filmmaker in the world now because a lot of people didn't like Thor: Love and Thunder, but I don't have that mindset. There's a couple of things that he's done that I'm like, I just didn't really care for, but most of his material I've enjoyed quite a bit. I'm not on the bandwagon, not on that I hate Taika Waititi bandwagon right now. But I just didn't like his role in the movie. And I didn't even like Keke Palmer all that much. And I know the other character, the third one, the old lady. I liked her quite a bit. I thought she was the only one that I found amusing. I'll say everyone else. I didn't care for. I thought it dragged down the movie. But I wouldn't say this is one of the, again, this isn't like the worst of the worst. But it was so disappointing. And that's why I have it on the list. Like on the double tilted scale, I would still stand by. I think I gave this like a rental. A high rental maybe. It was around there. But it's still just, yeah, I expected a lot more, especially after those really, really cool trailers. But hey, a lot of people apparently are disappointed. They just didn't care. They didn't understand it. This is one of the biggest box office flops of the year, Chad. One of the big Pixar failures of the year. In quite some time for Pixar. It holds true to this day, Chad. When Pixar's releasing 2 movies within a year, there's always going to be one that's just not gonna hit with critics or audiences. And Turning Red, it's funny, I have 2 different, I have on one list, I have a Pixar movie for my best of. Turning Red, I think, is excellent. It's in like my top 3 probably. And my worst of, I have Lightyear, which I did not think I would have it, but here it is. Lightyear. And now, chat, we can really start getting into the movies. I'm like, all right, fuck these movies. These are the movies where I have like, these bother me. They stick in my craw. Somewhere it's like, figured that they'd be bad. But at the same time, it's like it just feels like there was no goddamn effort put into them, chap. And I'll start with one that I keep forgetting I saw. It came out very early in the year. I think it was in January or very early February. But Texas Chainsaw. You can't even tell what the fuck in it. By the way, the images and the marketing for this movie, terrible. You can't even tell what's in the image. Look at these sunflower plants here. I can't even tell. He's behind me, by the way. Leatherface. Listen, I have to admit, I am not the biggest fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. I like the first movie quite a bit. Very cool, very different. Definitely one of those films that helped popularize the slasher subgenre. I mean, Halloween was the one that did it, 4 years later in 78. But you got to give some credit to Texas Chainsaw, too. Also kind of changed it up. Like, hey, let's have a lot of the slashing. Let's have a lot of the kills take place in broad daylight. Very dirty movie, very gritty movie. I like it for that. All the sequels that happened afterwards, a lot of those, there are a lot of people that really love, too. I just don't. I know it became more comedic. I was like, this is just not jiving with me. I just don't like it. And then you had all the other ones. Some of I've seen, some of the other ones I haven't. I was actually talking to Brad Jones about this the other night. But I just don't like those. The only other Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie I like is the first. There's like 15. It's crazy. This is a franchise where most of the movies are remakes. That's fucking nuts to me. But the first remake, I want to say that's from 2003 or 4, maybe. I don't know. It was the one with Arlie Ermey and Jessica Biel. That first remake I thought was really good. I actually liked that. 2003. Thank you, Sub Ruckus. That one I think is quite good. I really like that film. And they did a prequel movie and it was horrible. And then then every time they've just done a remake after remake after remake after remake. And this is the latest. It's a requel. It is a requel where it takes place after the events of the original movie. So 40 plus fucking years now. And it's basically what it wants to be. What this movie tries to be is Halloween 2018, which I really love. I love Halloween 2018. I thought that was great. I thought it reignited interest in the franchise, and that's probably my favorite Halloween franchise movie. Halloween, then Halloween 1978, and then Season of the Witch. This one, it makes all the same mistakes as any horror film does. Despicable, unlikable characters who are just there to die. They're meat. They're meat for the chainsaw. They're meat for the grinder. The movie. It's almost like it's commenting on Generation Z and woke people and how they don't appreciate it. It's like, oh my fucking God. They all suck. It also in a really exploitive way. It's commenting, and this comes out of fucking nowhere in the movie, but it comments on mass shooting and school shooters, and it uses a character who experiences a school shooting as a plot device, and that is really fucking shitty to me. That really bothered me watching this movie. I was like, oh, fuck you. And listen, it's bloody, it's gory, it has some kills, but I don't know, it's nothing that you haven't seen before. Especially in the Texas Chainsaw franchise, it's probably been done better, honestly. Definitely in the original remake, it was done better. And at least you like some of those characters, And you cared about it when they died. There are so many characters in this movie that die. You're laughing. Their deaths are there for jokes. They're there to die. They're to make you just laugh. I know the filmmakers, which, this is directed by someone you never heard of, David Blue Garcia. But it's produced by Fede Alvarez, and who also did the story. Fede Alvarez is one of those guys in horror right now who I think is just a fucking albatross on the genre. I really disliked his Evil Dead remake. He had Don't Breathe and Don't Breathe 2, which I have multiple problems with. And now he's doing an Alien movie, which I am incredibly concerned about more than ever. But I fucking lost my point. I lost the point because I was so mad at Fede Alvarez. What was I going to say? Oh, but no, it's clear that the people behind this movie wanted to make this Halloween 2018 they wanted this movie to be the Halloween 2018 of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. That's what they wanted. And they just fail. Because what Halloween 2018 did so goddamn well was, one, it showed that there were consequences from the original 78 film. The events of that movie had such a huge impact on Laurie Strode as a person, dealing with PTSD, passing that on to her daughter. Like you were like, wow, you felt it in that movie. And it also introduced you to new characters in the film that, listen, whether or not they have a lot of depth, it's like, listen, you're not always going to be able to give those characters a lot of depth. I think that's okay. I think that's okay. But what the movie did so well, I thought, was it made a lot of those supporting characters likable. In the 2018 movie, like you had the one babysitter who was babysitting that one kid in that sequence of the film, and I love the relationship. She wasn't like a shitty, just horny person, just like, fuck you, kid. No, she like clearly cared for him and was a goddamn good babysitter and did a good job. Like, they have a rapport, and you were like, I like this. And when she's killed in the movie, you feel something for her. Even though she doesn't have a lot of depth, it's just like the actress' performance was good, what was written for her was good, and the dialogue she was given was good. You know, same for some of the other friends in the movie. It's like, it worked. This movie, opposite. Everyone's a piece of shit. When they die, you fucking laugh because it's like, yeah, that's what you get. And it's just gross. It's just how exploitive it is. It's just really gross to me. So Fede Alvarez, I am. Clearly, the thing is though, this was clearly a success on Netflix because a lot of people watched it. It was probably in the top 10, maybe number 1 at one point. And they're doing sequels, as far as I know. But man, Fede Alvarez, that guy talking about failing upwards as a filmmaker. Incredible. And he's now directing one of the biggest. I mean, certainly a franchise has not had the best of times over the last 30 plus years, but the fact that he's doing an Alien movie, ugh. But yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, definitely one of I know he didn't direct. No, believe me. I know he didn't direct it. I know that he has one of his boys, David Blue Garcia, that directed, but his fingerprints are on this movie. He's producing it, and he came up with the story, and he was involved, and so I just don't like it. I don't like it. But yeah, now this is one of those films that I'm like, awful movie, awful filmmaking, and we're gonna get more of these in the future, sadly. Then moving on to another one, chat. Which comes at no surprise. I've ranted about this film and how disappointing it is. Definitely one of the biggest disappointments of the year. Hugely commercially successful, there's no doubt about that, but that is Jurassic World Dominion. I didn't think you can make a worse Jurassic. Listen, the Jurassic Park film franchise is filled with bad movies. That original film, Jurassic Park 1, beautiful. One of my favorite movies of all time. Even with the flaws that it has, I think it's great. I watch that movie at the very least once a year. Probably even multiple times, honestly, whether it be with friends or whoever else. And every other entry in the franchise doesn't even measure up in any capacity to that first movie. But then we move into the world movies, right? You had the original Jurassic World, which, I was like, I liked it. I was like, it was fun. I liked it at the time, but in hindsight, when we got later on, it's like, really, you just dislike it because those characters are just so bland and generic, and you kind of hate them after a while. You resent them. And there's some stupid shit. I did not think, this is what I was going to say at the top, I did not think it was possible to make a worse Jurassic Park, Jurassic World movie than Fallen Kingdom. Fallen Kingdom is horrible. Interesting idea where it's like, hey, let's do something a little different with the Jurassic Park franchise. Let's make it a ecological environmental disaster movie involving a volcano. It's like, okay. And let's make it a haunted house horror movie. And I was like, well, not what I expected, but okay, let's see what you do. And it was horrible. Both ideas were bad. They do not work. Just dumb. Again, horrible characters making stupid decisions. Very generic bad guys. All the dinosaur stuff, just not interesting. I fucking hate the indoor raptor. Bad. There's only one good scene in the movie. And that scene is when, because in the whole premise of Fallen Kingdom is when they're trying to get the dinosaurs off the island because they built a theme park on an active volcano, which makes so much sense. It also makes the previous movie dumb too, because it's like, you made a theme park on an island of a giant active volcano? Why, Hammond? Spared no expense. It's like, you spared some expense for that. What the hell are you talking about? And it just makes it's the kind of thing where you make the other movie look dumb. You make the good movie look dumber because of that. But anyway, then they get the dinosaurs off the island, whatever. But there's this one shot when they're on this boat and they're leaving, and there's this sad brontosaurus who's just like, wait for me. And it's like, you're like, oh shit, sorry. And he rears up on its hind legs and goes, as it's just, overcome by smoke and molten ash. And to me, that represents the original Jurassic Park film. Like that sad brontosaurus is Jurassic Park 1, and all the fucking other dinos and all the rest of those schmucks and schlubs that we have that we consider to be characters, chat. That's all the other goddamn entries. Just looking, going by, leaving that good movie in the dust, in the molten ash to suffocate, chat, on its own melted innards. Anyway, I didn't think they could make a worse movie than Fallen Kingdom, but it had that one scene. In Dominion, there is no sad brontosaurus getting killed by molten ash and smog, chat. Dominion has, in my opinion, no redeeming qualities. Like, this is the movie they were hyping up. We're going to bring back the legacy characters, and they're going to interact with the new characters. Are we supposed to like those people? And no. And the thing is, they even Colin Trevorrow, which, he came back, he co-wrote, he produced and he co-wrote Fallen Kingdom. It was directed by J.A. Bayona, right? But he came back for this one. He failed in every capacity where he gave nothing for the legacy. He gave so little for the legacy characters to do in the movie. They got so little to do in the movie. And then you have the new characters that we've been with for 2+ movies now, 2 movies, and they suck even more. Where they're just so generic, and their personalities just change depending on which film they're on. Except for Chris Pratt, he just stays the same. He has no arc in any of those films. It's 2 different things. This movie's and the crazy thing about this movie is, it's not even about dinosaurs. Which is what are you talking about? It's Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. Of course, it's all about dinosaurs. The last movie ended where dinosaurs are released on the continents. They're going to have to coexist with humans. How are we going to be able to do that? We probably won't be able to do that. We'll probably have to, we're going to fight each other and shit. It'll be fucking infrastructure will collapse. Countries' borders will be overrun. Nope. Movie takes place 4 years later, and we just kind of figured it out. It's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, we just figured it out. And since the events of Fallen Kingdom, and I'm like, this is insulting. They say only about 38 people have died due to dinosaur activity. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? What the fuck what are you talking about that 37 people died due to dinosaurs? What? Yeah, we just figured it out. And so you just ignore the premise that was really cool that you kind of set up. One of the only good things of the previous movie did was set up a unique premise so you could explore in the sequel, and you ignore it completely. It's about bugs. It's about 2 things. It's about a kidnapping story because they bring back that clone girl who unleashed hell upon the mainland, and she's sassy, and she's going through the change shack, going through puberty, and she gets captured because they change her, they retcon her, where her DNA, because her mom, which is also her, she impregnated herself with her, and she had a baby, but then the baby had a disease that she also had, but she cured the baby disease, but didn't cure her own disease, even though it's the same disease. So why didn't you just cure yourself too, dumb? BD1's here, he's sad, and he made locusts for evil Tim Cook of Apple, and he wanted to control the world food supply of giant locusts, but then the locusts are just eating everything now, and they got to stop the locusts, but they need to stop, in order to stop the locusts, they need to introduce an enzyme that's in the, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's dumb. It's horrible. The legacy characters deal with the locust shit, while Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, who looks beautiful by the way, they deal with the kidnapping, and eventually they all come together, and there's dinosaurs. Eventually, there's a Gigantosaurus, which is the largest terrestrial carnivore, which actually was not true. That's a lie. It is the Tyrannosaurus Rex. It was the Joker of dinosaurs, Chad. They lied to us twice. They said that it was the largest carnivorous terrestrial organism ever on the planet, walking on, land. Lie. No, it was the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Other lie, And they call it Colin Trevorrow in interviews said, oh, it's the Joker of dinosaurs. He just wants to watch the world burn. What does that mean? And I watched the movie, Chad, figured out, like, what is this? I mean, is it like, you know, is it gonna like put bombs on some boats and shit and like, you know, force people to blow each other up? No, it's just a dinosaur. It just wants to eat things. That's it. That felt like a marketing ploy. Like the executive was like, let's say people like the Joker. The Joker movie made like $1 billion worldwide. And the Dark Knight, oh, can't forget about the Dark Knight. Hey, let's say that our new dinosaur is the Joker. Colin Trevorrow was like, what do you mean? He's like, just say it. Just say that to the press. And that's what they did. And it makes no goddamn sense. You get what you fucking deserve, 100%. And then they bring back Dodson. Dodson's here and no one cares, Chad, who's not even the same person, obviously because the original actor's a pedophile and is in prison, I believe. But they bring back Dobson, who's now Tim Cook, and he's really weird. And he's played by Peter Parker's dad in the Amazing Spider-Man series, and he dies, spoiler, he dies in the same way that Newman died by Dilophosaurus. And so I'm like, why is this? So the ghost of fucking Wayne Knight of Newman teamed up with the Dilophosauruses 30 fucking years later to kill Dodson. It was weird. And then nothing else happens. And then the movie ends, and we coexist with dinosaurs, and everything's fine. Lazy. So lazy. Nothing bold was done. And you're just sitting there frustrated. And it's too goddamn long. It's 2.5 fucking hours. Way too long, chat. Awful. And that's why, to me, it's like, at least with Fallen Kingdom, I could say you had that sad brontosaurus and you set up something cool. And the rest of the movie, awful. But it had those two things. This movie has nothing. Has nothing. Nothing that defines it other than the grass. Everything that defines it is bad. It, to me, at this point, you know, I mean, maybe I'll change my mind in a few years. I don't know. But at this point, for me, it is the worst Jurassic Park movie, which is saying something. If I were to rank them, like, I don't know. I mean, Jurassic Park 1, obviously, and then maybe World? Maybe World, and then 3, and then 2, and, you know, Lost World, and then Fallen Kingdom, and then Dominion. I don't know. Just watch if you have never watched any of the Jurassic Park films, just watch the first one. Just watch the first movie. You're wasting your time. Unless you're curious. I mean, I'm never going to tell you, let me preface this. I'm never going to tell you not to watch something. You should watch it. You know, I think it's good that maybe you should watch these kind of films and see like the flaws that these movies have. So if you're interested in filmmaking or writing, like, don't do these things. Right? But if you want just to, like, hey, you want to have fun, you want to see like some really incredibly cinematic, you know, blockbuster, some of the best blockbuster filmmaking imaginable, then watch the original Jurassic Park. If you want to watch bad blockbuster filmmaking, watch the sequels. That's the only thing. So yeah, Dominion, high on my list. However, Chad, it is, you know, now I haven't really ranked these in any particular order. Maybe these top 3. Maybe these are like the top 3 worst. Texas Chainsaw, Jurassic World, Dominion, you know. The others I'd have to figure out. But the worst movie to me, you know, it's probably a movie that a lot of people forgot. I forgot I saw this. I was like, oh my God, yes. And it's a sequel. And it's not even, you know what? It's not even really a movie. It's basically like, you know, shitty porn. And that is 365 days, the first day. It's probably called 365 Days 2, but they call it 365 Days, the first day. This is a sequel to an infamous Netflix movie, which is an adaptation of Polish erotic novels, where the whole premise is this Italian gangster, mafioso, La Cosa Nostra, if you will, kidnaps this Polish woman and forces her to live at his compound, and basically over time gets her to fall in love with him, but it's actually Stockholm Syndrome. That's the premise of the movie. That's the premise of the original movie. That's it. It's fucking gross. It's rapey. It's despicable. And it was number 1 on Netflix for however long it was. It was hugely successful. And it also got a limited theatrical release, whatever. It was hugely successful. Horrible. They did a sequel, and it takes place after the events of the original movie. And all it is, chat, it's just, this is the, I mean, I guess it has a plot, if you will, but this is the structure of the movie. Sex scene, music video, and then goofy acting in between all that. That's what it is. It's just sex scene, music video, goofy acting. That's all this movie is. The premise of the film is you have the main lead actress. Oh God, what the hell is her name? Laura. Well, the character's name is Laura, and she marries Massimo, who is the gangster, who is a bad guy, who is a villain who murders people. Which I'm still like, this is what? She's upset because at one point, even though they get married and everything, and they fuck all the time, and they do music videos, he's like Christian Grey, where he has like sexual urges. And he likes bondage and all that shit. I mean, it's not even a very accurate presentation of bondage, and that kind of thing. BDSM. It's like, I don't know. It's not accurate. But he wants to fuck everything in sight. And at one point, when they're at a party, she sees him fucking this other woman, this person that he was originally in love with. And she decides to leave him. And she gets involved with this other guy who's also a mafioso who pretends to be a gardener, whatever. You find out, and I'm going to spoil this movie because it doesn't matter. You find out in the movie that the person that she thought was her husband, fucking his old flame, was actually the evil twin brother. Was his evil twin brother, Chad, who's crazy, who wants to destroy his brother's criminal empire and rebuild it for himself. That's what it is. That's the whole fucking premise of the movie. And in between all that, it's music video sex scene. That's it. That's it. It's soap opera bullshit. That's 100% what it is. And this movie was fucking huge. It was #1 on Netflix forever long. But it's so gross. I mean, the thing is, listen, it's inherently gross because of the events of the previous film. I will say they do attempt to, they get rid of the whole rape stuff. They're like, they cover that. They don't even want to mention it. Because Netflix was more involved with the production of this movie. And they're like, okay, yeah, we got a lot of flack for that. I mean, we're still making these movies because money. But let's not be rapey anymore. So all that rapiness is gone. And they just don't talk about it. In the last movie, they're like, because the last movie's a rape fantasy. 100% a rape fantasy. This movie, they get rid of all that shit. And they do not bring that up ever again. So it's like, okay, yes, that good thing, but it's still it's such an awful movie with horrible acting. You have some of these people that anytime, because they're not native English speakers. I don't want to shame someone, they can't speak, English well. I mean, listen, you don't expect me to speak, Spanish. I'll probably do a horrible job. But at the very least, as a filmmaker, you're going to want to hire people, or you want to train them in order even to speak it phonetically. If they're going to speak English in the movie, you want them to speak it well. And they do not. And they do not speak it well. And it sounds really fucking awkward. It's really bad. It probably should just all had it where it was just subtitled instead. Don't have them try to speak English in the film, which I don't know why they did that. But yeah, no, this, for me right now, this is the worst movie of 2022. If you even want to consider it a movie, like, I mean, for those, I would not die in the hill if someone said, Chris, this is not even a movie. It's not. It's really not. It's maybe got it's like 20 minutes of maybe a movie. It's like a short. It's like an episode of a TV show. It's like 22 minutes. It's like 22 minutes of actual people talking to each other. And like one action scene at the very, very end. I was not even saying, I guess in an action scene. You have 2 minutes of an action scene and maybe 20 minutes of actual dialogue. And then the other, because this movie's pretty fucking long. It's 109 minutes. And then the other hour and 10 minutes is a music video and fuck scenes. And they're just, I mean, if you want to watch people fuck, I think there's other, avenues there are other places you can go for that. But yeah, it's horrible. Horrible, chat. 365 days, the first day, which I don't know what the first day is. Is it like the first day of marriage? I don't even know what it's referencing. The title confuses me, Chad. Anyway, horrible films. But that, my friends, is my list of worst and most disappointing movies of 2022 so far. There are some films I have not seen, like I said. I haven't watched Morbius. I'm sure there's some other bad movies that have been out there. People are saying, you got to talk about this. We got to watch this. And I will definitely check out Morbius, and perhaps I'll check out some other ones. But I'm sure, chat, there will be some other terrible movies that will come out this year. And hopefully some other good ones. Because I will say, I feel like this year for film, it has been much, but despite these awful films, I feel like this year has been much better as opposed to the last two, chat. You know, we've gotten some really good movies this year, thankfully. But yeah, some of these, woo boy, a bunch of stinkers. But let me know your thoughts, chat. Let me know what you think. What are some of your worst movies of 2022?